I'm trying something different. Normally I'm holding the mic, but I noticed like in the last video, I'd fixed most of it when I was editing, but I would kind of move the mic to and from my mouth, and so it kind of messed with the audio. So I'm having the mic right here to see if that helped. We're going to see together because honestly I don't know. But again, hi everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about if the Grinch was justified in stealing Christmas. If you don't want to hear my little spiel and you just want to get straight into the movie breakdown and then into my justification as to why I do or don't, I won't be revealing whether I do believe he's justified or I don't, and then backing up my claim with evidence till the end. But then you can skip to this timestamp if you just want to skip to there. If you don't, you could just stick around for my little spiel. So look at the outfit. I finally can be on theme. For the last video, I had nothing. For the video before that, nothing. We went to this Christmas party and we used to do this thing where our families would like dress up in the same outfit. So me and my family dressed up as the Grinch. So I actually have a Grinch onesie. Yep. So I could actually be on theme this time. So I'm happy about that. But basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to give a detailed breakdown of the Grinch story, and then I'm going to be telling whether or not I believe he was justified in stealing Christmas. That's basically what this video is going to be. Also, I always have my notes on my leg. I feel you can see them this time. Normally with the framing you can't see them, but here's my notebook. As always, because I'm going to be giving a detailed synopsis of this movie, there are spoilers. I'm going to be spoiling almost basically every aspect of this movie. So if you're not into spoilers, please go watch the movie and then watch this. But yeah, let's get into it. So today we're going to be talking about how the Grinch stole Christmas, and it came out in the year 2000. So I actually have the beginning quote of the movie because the movie actually kind of just starts in like a snow flurry, like we don't see anything, and then a man starts narrating, and he's narrating all throughout the movie. But I quoted the first thing he said when the movie starts, and he says, "Inside a snowflake, like the one on your sleeve, there happened a story you must see to believe," which I never missed this part because the fact that this entire story happens inside a snowflake always is mind-boggling to me. But let's get into it. So basically the guy gives us information and he says that the Who's of Whoville live on Mount Patoon and they love Christmas. They do actually celebrate other holidays, but he says that the Who's specifically absolutely love Christmas. Like loving Christmas is in their DNA. And then we get this beautiful scene of Whoville, and you can see a bunch of Who's just kind of like going around shopping, celebrating, just everything. He also mentions that they have 12 toes. This movie has been out for over 20 years, so I've seen it on multiple different occasions, and I've always missed the part where he said they have 12 toes, but I'll keep going. Then we cut to a scene where these Who's are shopping, and it's where we get introduced to Lou, which I don't think that's his first name, but that's the name that he's called throughout the movie. And then we are introduced to Cindy Lou Who, and Cindy is basically with her father as he is shopping for Christmas presents, and this is right before she's about to go to school. And then we kind of cut to the Grinch's lair because the narrator kind of takes us up there, and the Grinch ends up spying on these teenagers who are heading up to his humble abode. The teens, not all of them are specifically named during this scene, but we do get to meet Drew, who is Cindy's older brother, and also Stu, who is also, again, Cindy's older brother. And then these two girls, and basically they're all like laughing and giggling and heading up to the mountain, telling each other like little jokes and stuff and little bedtime story-esque stories about the Grinch. And like they're like, oh, he's this mythical creature that lives up in this hill and he like eats kids for breakfast. That's not specifically what they said, but they're basically saying to each other stuff like that. And then once they get to a certain point, they hit the Grinch's door, and you could visibly see on these boys' faces that they are terrified for their life. But I think Stu is the one who gets dared by one of the girls to knock on the Grinch's door, and because, you know, he wants to look like a cool guy even though he's scared, they both actually kind of weasel their way up to the door, and they go to knock on it. But before they can actually knock on it, the door swings open and this monster like comes out roaring at them, and before they can even turn back and see what the monster looks like, they're all booking it down the mountain. And then we cut back to this monster, and the monster ends up actually being Max, which is the Grinch's dog, and he is kind of attached to this machine, and the roaring is actually his barking, and you know, the Grinch is proud of him for doing this. And this is when we actually get an intro to the Grinch. It's like this long scene, and the first time I ever saw the Grinch, this scene was kind of like, it still is iconic till this day because of how it's framed. It's like we get all these scenes of his hands and the scenes of his like legs, and then all of a sudden he turns around and you actually get to see his face. And depending on the type of child you were, this either absolutely terrified you or you were cool with it. And I was one of the children who was cool with it. But basically throughout this like scene, the Grinch is kind of like talking about how these kids keep trying to mess with him, they keep trying to visit him. So then he makes the decision that why not, instead of having them come up to terrorize me, I go down to Whoville to terrorize them. And as some side note information, throughout this movie, this is the 1000th jubilation. The Grinch lives on Mount Crumpet, and his heart is 2 sizes too small, which is why the narrator believes and why the Who's theorize he hates Christmas. But getting into the next scene. In this scene, we cut back to Cindy with her dad, and she is basically asking him questions because she doesn't understand why there's so much love for Christmas. She's trying to understand why all Who's just love it, and her dad is not really giving her answers. And in this scene, he's not able to give her an answer because before he's able to even say anything about it, he gets interrupted by Stu and Drew, who, covered in snow, by the way, announced to him that they saw the Grinch. And the minute that they announced that they saw the Grinch, basically the entire Who Center, call this like the town square, comes to a halt. Someone literally crashes their car. People run into each other. The music on the radio literally stops. And by this point in time, the Grinch is down in Whoville and has been, and he's kind of been running a little bit of a muck. Like, he sawed something which made someone, I believe, fall, and he also gave a saw to some kids. So he's also witnessing all of this, and everyone's panic about his name. And then upon like the world coming to a halt, the mayor of Whoville, whose name is Mayor May Who, he comes out to investigate, and he basically reprimands Lou, Cindy's father, for his son's actions. He's kind of like telling Lou, you know, to get his teenagers under control and to tell everyone, you know, the Grinch isn't coming down. I don't completely remember. It seems like the mayor is trying to make the Grinch somewhat of a myth and not like a real person, because he hasn't been down to Whoville since the mayor was a child, which I'll get more into later. And so what Lou ends up doing is he ends up lying, saying that the boys, they're just teenagers, they were just up there playing with like fireworks and stuff, and they didn't see the Grinch. And the mayor's like, yeah, no, they didn't. And then everything kind of resumes back to normal among the town. And then this is when Cindy Lou Who, I'll just call her Cindy instead of her full name. This is her first time hearing about the Grinch, and she asks, like, who is the Grinch? And why doesn't he like Christmas? This is where she starts actually having an interest and wondering about the Grinch. But her dad does not answer her question about the Grinch. Instead, he's like, oh, you're late for school. And then he sends her off to school, and he goes to his job at the post office. Then we cut to a scene of Lou showing up to Cindy's classroom because she has been held back by her teacher. Her teacher's name is Miss Ruhu, and basically Miss Ruhu goes to tell her father as to why she has held Cindy back, but she chokes up. And Cindy, she says to her dad that she wanted to do her holiday report on a mysterious Christmas figure. And then she says the Grinch. And of course, her teacher is taken back by this, which I don't understand why she is. She literally had the Grinch as one of her students. But I digress. And her dad ends up taking her to the post office with him. So I'm not sure if this was like at the end of the school day or before recess and she gets sent home early. It's not necessarily made clear, but the teacher is kind of like to Lou, you know, you need to talk to her about this. And so now Cindy is in the post office with her father, and she's kind of helping him, but more so she's just asking him questions. She's like, who is the Grinch? What is the Grinch? Why do people not like him? Why does he not like Christmas? And her dad's basically being like, the Grinch isn't a who, he's a what, and no one understands why he doesn't like Christmas. No one even really talks to him. We don't know his complete story. And then he asks her to take some letters to the back room to him to be put into the sorting room. Before she gets in there, we cut to the sorting room and we see the Grinch back in the sorting room, basically messing up people's letters. And when Cindy comes into the back room, he ends up hiding up on the wall with Max so he does not get caught. But Max ends up sneezing, which kind of gives away their position. So he jumps down, and then we get that iconic screaming back and forth, and then him getting in her face and being like, I'm the Grinch. And then Cindy ends up falling into the sorting machine, and the Grinch goes to leave and kind of just leave her in there for whatever is gonna happen to happen, but Max ends up stopping him, and that like lets the Grinch know, you know, like, let me not leave this little girl. And so the Grinch ends up saving Cindy from the sorting machine, and he's about to walk away until she's like, oh my gosh, you saved my life. And then that stops the Grinch at the door in his track, and he's like, I didn't save your life, you weren't properly packaged. And then he ends up wrapping her in wrapping paper, and this is how her dad finds her. And as she is is getting unwrapped by her father, she's about to tell him about the Grinch, but her dad is so excited about the fact that she was practicing her Christmas wrapping that she doesn't tell him. But this is the first moment, of course, her meeting the Grinch and her seeing the Grinch as a good person. You know, everyone keeps telling her that the Grinch is bad or not completely answering her questions about the Grinch, but her first time meeting the Grinch has been positive. And then we cut to later that night where we are introduced to Betty Lou who is Cindy's mom. We are also introduced to Martha May Whovier, who is an iconic woman, honestly, and they are both wrapping their houses to participate in a light competition for the Whobilation. I just think this part is funny because Betty Lou Who has been trying to beat Martha for years, and so she's saying things like she's taking lamps out of the house. She asked Cindy, I think, to take the light bulb out of the fridge. At the end of the scene, we also get another look at the mayor. He has a crush and has had a crush on Martha for years. Then we cut back to the Grinch and Mac. The Grinch has had his fun down in Whoville and he decides to head back up to his house, and how he does this is he uses the trash chute and he basically takes it up to his mountain. This is where we actually get to see the greater inner workings of the Grinch's house. I would say we get to see that he is an innovator, that he basically uses the trash that the Whos have all thrown away to decorate and modify his house. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of nasty and I bet you it smells awful in there, but the Grinch is a pretty good inventor. And then we get the iconic scene of Cindy singing her song. I sing that song regardless of what time of year it is. It occasionally pops in my head and I'm always like, where are you, Christmas? But to like break down the lyrics and the meat behind this song, the song is basically about Cindy's complex feelings about Christmas. You know, she's saying things like, we used to be so carefree, now nothing is easy. And at the end of the song, she's like, has Christmas changed or is it me? You know, she's just starting to grow up and not understand or want to better understand what Christmas is about, what it's meant to be for. Like, it's such a short song, but you get so much context into like what Cindy is thinking about and feeling in the song. And then at the end of the song, we do cut back to the Grinch's house, and you can kind of see that he is lonely. Like, he deals with it, and he deals with it just being him and Max, but he really has no one to talk to and hasn't really had anyone to talk to for the past. It's not even clear how old the Grinch is, but he left home at, I believe, 7 or 8 years old and has been up in his home since then and has been alone since then. But then we cut to the next morning. It's like a Saturday or something because Cindy is going around from house to house by herself, yes, as like a 7, 8-year-old, and collecting info for her report on the Grinch. The first place she stops is at the house of the two women who raised the Grinch. But I'm going to give you the rundown of the Grinch's backstory from their perspective, and then we're going to also get Martha's perspective, and we're also going to get the mayor's perspective. But this is the first perspective of the two ladies that raised the Grinch. They say the Grinch came down from the sky like all Who babies do in a basket. His basket ended up getting stuck in a tree, and no one even knew he was there till the next morning. But the two ladies took him in knowing he was special. The first thing that let them know he was different was, of course, that he was green, but also the fact that he wasn't into eating normal things. Instead of eating the cookies on the plate, he ended up eating the Santa plate, and at the end of it he says, Santa, bye-bye. But even though like that was the case for him as a baby, they still raised him like every little Who child to love Christmas. Now we are getting a mixture of Martha's perspective and the mayor's perspective. So through this flashback from their perspectives, we find out that Martha had a crush on the Grinch, or the Grinch had a crush on Martha, but from the way that these two interact, you can kind of tell it was more so mutual. But the mayor says that Martha was his girlfriend. And the reason I say the mayor says this, I think it's a lie, because not that long after saying that Martha was his girlfriend, he says that he took the Grinch under his wing and led him in the right direction. And this is not true, because then we cut to a scene of the mayor actually bullying the Grinch for being different, for being hairy, you know, so that's not like taking someone under your wing, you're bullying bullying them. That's not helping anything. And the entire class is basically laughing at him. And the reason I think the mayor even bullied the Grinch to begin with is because he could tell that Martha had a crush on him, in that he had a crush on Martha, and it was clear that the mayor wanted Martha then, and he wants Martha now. But after this, the Grinch actually goes up to Martha to talk to her, and Martha does end up expressing how much she loves Christmas, and this makes the Grinch roll his eyes. But then she's like, you know, I love the colors red and then green, and then as she says green, she like caresses his face. And then we cut to the two women who raised him, and they said once he came home from school that day, he actually got into the Christmas spirit. And then we get this scene of him building a present for Martha for school the following day. But then right after that, we also get this scene of the Grinch in the mirror, and he's holding a razor, and he's thinking about the bullying he experienced, and he ends up shaving his face. And then we cut to school the next day, and the Grinch has showed up to class with a bag on his head. He goes to try to give Martha the gift he has made without showing his face, but then the teacher tells him to take the bag off, which then makes him put the book up, and then he has to put the book down, and then he puts his shoe up, then he has to put his shoe down, and then it is revealed that he has basically cut himself all over his face from trying to shave off his hair. And then everyone except Martha starts laughing at him and making fun of him, and this kind of triggers the Grinch, because then he starts to tear up the classroom. When I say that, I say this loosely. I mean, I'm not saying I would have done this as an 8-year-old, but he literally throws the present that he made and then throws the Christmas tree. He didn't throw the present at anyone, and the Christmas tree didn't hit anyone. Not condoning doing that, right, in anger, but they're making it seem like this man tried to burn down the school. He threw a present and he threw a tree, and the tree wasn't even that big. But I'll continue. After destroying the classroom, he basically takes a climb all the way up to Mount Crumpet and stays there and does not come back home. And Martha says this is the last time she saw him. And of course, hearing this doesn't make Cindy happy. This actually makes her a bit sad. She's like walking home by herself as an 8-year-old. And then later we cut to Cindy heading to the jubilation with her family. And as they're walking to the jubilation, she literally says to her father, I'm planning on doing something drastic. And her father's like, oh yeah, tell your mother. I swear, watching the Grinch now and hearing all these like little tidbits, it's super funny. But during the nomination ceremony in the jubilation, what's basically happening is they're trying to nominate the holiday cheermeister. And during the ceremony, Cindy nominates the Grinch as the holiday cheermeister. And of course, at first, everyone is against this idea, but Cindy ends up convincing the entire town that this is something that should be done. You know, no one deserves to be alone on Christmas. We all deserve the cheer and joy of celebrating together. And she just, you know, she nominates the Grinch. And of course, the mayor is against this. We know the mayor has a grudge against the Grinch. And he, because he can't like completely overrule the entire town, he's like, okay, you will nominate the Grinch as a holiday cheermeister, but if he does not show up to receive his award and participate, then I, as the runner-up, will become the holiday cheermeister. So this prompts Cindy to somehow get away from her family and climb up the Grinch's mountain by herself, an 8-year-old by themselves, just climbing a mountain. I'll keep going. But she climbs the mountain by herself and goes to, in person, invite the Grinch to the jubilation. And the Grinch does try to scare her away, but she's not scared of him. But I will highlight this because I think it is important. Within her like speech of convincing the Grinch, she admits to having doubts about Christmas, but then again, she believes that if she can get the Grinch to reunite with the Who's, everything will be okay for her as well. And like, this is not a direct quote of what she says, but I thought it was important to highlight because I feel like it talks about like one of her motivations as to why she wants to include the Grinch. Again, like I've been kind of going over this entire time, she doesn't know how to feel about Christmas. I wouldn't call like her feelings completely negative, but they're not as like positive as every other Who she is coming across. So I think in that way she feels like she can relate to him. And the way that she kind of convinces him to go or entices him with the idea of going is that there's going to be a prize. And so the Grinch is like, if there's a prize, then that means there are losers, and every other Who is a loser if I'm the winner. And then he kind of sends Cindy on her way back down the trash chute, and we kind of get this scene of him trying to find an outfit, and he ends up stealing an outfit from a yodeler, him kind of going back and forth of if he's actually going to go. What ends up making him going is he gets sent down the same trash chute he sent Cindy down by Max, and so he does end up showing up to the jubilation. And we're at the point where the mayor is trying to announce the award for the holiday cheermeister. Cindy again is back with her family and has been for a little bit, and the mayor is looking around. He's not seeing the Grinch, and he's like, oh, he didn't show up. I guess the award goes to me. And then the Grinch pops up fashionably late, and as everyone sees him, they're kind of like cowering back and creating space for him. And he gets on the stage and he's like, I'm here to accept my award. But the mayor says that, you know, before you can completely accept the award, you have to participate in everything that the holiday cheermeister is supposed to participate in. And then the Grinch ends up having to participate in all these different events. It's pudding tasting, it's like fudge tasting, he has to conga, he has to chug eggnog, he gets to sack race, and a few other activities. And then at the end of it, he's able to receive his crown and his award. And you can tell, like, as this is happening, the Grinch is having fun participating in all these events. And then the last event of the evening, it seems like, is this present pass on, as I think what it's called. And basically all the Who's stand in a big circle and they pass the gift to the person next to them, and every person exchanges gifts. And of course the Grinch didn't know this, so he didn't bring a gift, but the mayor's like, it's okay, I brought you a gift. And he ends up giving the Grinch a razor. Now, if you remember from not that long before, I was telling you about the fact that the Grinch shaved his face because of the bullying that he received from the mayor and his fellow classmates. And so the Grinch is looking down at this razor, and Who's are laughing at him. And then as the Grinch is kind of just like settling in this moment of receiving the razor, the mayor turns his attention towards Martha May, and he basically proposes to her. And this man, he offers her a new car, and he literally gives this woman 20 seconds to make up her mind. And you can clearly tell that Martha's uncomfortable. She doesn't know like what to say or what to do. And before she can actually give a straight up yes or no, the Grinch goes up to the new car and scratches it. And the scratch is very loud. I don't know how sharp his nails are under the fur, but it's like sharp enough to scratch up the car. That gets the attention of everybody, and he kind of gives his speech. You can clearly tell that the razor has triggered him, but within his speech, he's like visibly angry. He's like, oh, I see what this all was about, what you have going on here. And he says quite a few different things. And he ends up getting up on stage, and he ends up shaving the mayor's head and scaring everybody. And now all the Who's are running around in fear away from the town center. The Grinch ends up burning down the town Christmas tree, and then he steals a car, and then he crashes it and causes an explosion, and then he just goes home. The Whobilation is held on Christmas Eve, right? So he believes that, you know, he has ruined Christmas, and so he's back at his home proud of himself. And then he hears singing, and he looks, and the Who's are putting up a new Christmas tree, and they are continuing their Whobilation celebration. And of course this pisses the Grinch off because he was trying to ruin Christmas for the Who's. And so as he is standing on his porch and he is mad and he doesn't understand as to like what he can do to get under his skin, he throws Max, because Max was celebrating Christmas by himself. And he picks Max up, and Max's face is covered in snow and it looks like Santa Claus. And this gives the Grinch a absolutely terrible, horrendous idea to dress up as Santa Claus, build his own sleigh, and go steal Christmas from the Who's. So then we get this like montage over the iconic You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch song of him creating his sleigh, preparing his Santa outfit, and then testing it. And then after that, we get this scene of him waiting until Santa has finished delivering all the gifts to Whoville. And then he himself, with Max as his one reindeer, goes into Whoville and steals not only the presents, but the trees, even the food from the fridges in people's houses. And the first house he actually ends up stopping at is the Luhu household. And as he is sucking the presents up the chimney, as he is about to shove the tree up the chimney, Cindy walks down the stairs, and they have this mini conversation. And the Grinch is pretending to be Santa, and he's like, there's a bulb loose, so I'm going to take this back to my workshop and I'm going to fix it, and then I'm going to bring it back. And Cindy ends up asking him, what is Christmas really about? And the Grinch just basically answers, it's about presents. And this answer disappoints Cindy, and she's like, oh. And then she takes her water that she's given by Santa, starts to head back up the stairs, and then she's like, Santa, can I ask for something? And he's like, what do you need? And she's like, can you please drop something off to the Grinch? I think he's kind of a nice person and he deserves to have presents as well. And then she goes off the bed, and the Grinch continues to basically steal everything from everyone's houses. And then right as the sun is coming up in the sky, the Grinch, because the Grinch has ran out of fuel, is having Max pull the sled full of these presents up to the tippity top of Mount Crumpet so that the Grinch can push the presents off. Mind you, Max pulled this sleigh 3,000 feet up the mountain. The dog, this is just a little sprinkle of how you know this just isn't completely real because of how small Max is, how big that sled is, and 3,000 feet up a snowy mountain, one dog. But the Grinch is at the top of this mountain peak, happy about what he has done. And he's like fantasizing and theorizing about how the Who's are gonna wake up. And he's like, they're gonna wake up and they're gonna cry. And it cuts back to Whoville, and the Who's are waking up. They're heading to this town center, and they are crying about the fact that there's nothing under their tree. Their trees are gone. All their houses have been ransacked. And the mayor basically ends up kind of shaming the Who's and condemning Cindy. He's like, this is what we get because you guys wanted to celebrate with the Grinch. Guys all wanted to believe a little girl. But finally, Lou, Cindy's dad, actually sticks up for her, and he's like, I'm happy that the Grinch took all our presents, because he says Christmas isn't about just presents. It isn't just about decor. It is about gathering and being with family and being with people you love. And after he says this, the rest of the Who's kind of cheer up a bit and realize, yeah, it's not all about our present. And they start singing again. And the Grinch hears their singing from the top of Mount Crumpet, and he's kind of confused again. He's like, I tried to ruin their Christmas Eve party. I've taken all their presents. What is it? And he's having this revelation. He's like, I guess Christmas isn't all about presents. And then as this happened, he kind of just throws himself back, and it kind of seems like he's having a heart attack. But what is really happening is that his heart is growing 3 sizes bigger than it actually was before. And then he's not as heartless, and he's sitting there with his new big heart. He's like, oh my gosh, the presents are about to fall off of the mountain. I forgot to say that after everyone in the town square realizes that Christmas is more than about presents and they're celebrating, Cindy decides to take the trash chute up to Mount Crumpet to go visit the Grinch. But now again, cutting back to the Grinch trying to now save the presents off the top of Mount Crumpet. He is trying to pull this really, really heavy sled, which I feel like if Max was able to do it, you should be able to do it. But he's trying to pull it back from falling over the edge, and halfway through doing this, he kind of gives up, and he's kind of like, it's just presents. There's not much I can do. It's heavy and I can't get to it. And then as he's saying this to himself, as the presents are continuing to slip off the side of the mountain, he sees Cindy, and she's at the top of the sack of toys, and she's like, I came up here to see you because no one should be alone on Christmas. And of course, this warms the Grinch's heart even more than it was already being warmed, and it gives him the strength he needs to be able to not only pull the presents from over the edge, but basically deadlift this entire sack of presents over his head. Then we cut to the Grinch, Cindy, and Max heading down the mountain to return all the presents to the Who's. And as they're heading down the mountain, they try to push on the brakes because they're kind of heading towards Whoville pretty fast, and the brakes end up breaking, and Betty and Martha end up truly seeing the sled is about to crash through the town square. So they end up devising a plan. They take Christmas lights off the side of a building and try to kind of make a rope to kind of catch and slow down the sled so it doesn't hit the town square. It was a nice plan, but it doesn't end up working. They end up just getting dragged behind the sled. And then as the sled is about to hit the tree, Cindy's dad is in front of it. Instead of moving out of the way, he kind of tries to push it, but it ends up stopping right before crushing him and knocking over the town center Christmas tree. And everyone cheers, and the Grinch kind of gets up and is like, hey, we're here. And then he ends up apologizing for stealing everything and stealing all the presents to a cop, and he kind of tries to turn himself in, and the mayor's like, yeah, arrest him. And the cop's like, I mean, he said sorry, and everything's here, there's no reason to arrest him. And so everyone cheers for the Grinch not getting arrested for what he did. And then the mayor's kind of stumped by this, and then Martha slides down from the bag, and Martha comes down and she returns the wedding ring back to the mayor and is like, my heart belongs to someone else. She looks at the Grinch, and the Grinch is like, me? And she's like, yeah. And then he kind of celebrates. And then all the Who's start to sing their iconic Fahu Dore song. They're around the tree. And I think the row thing is cool, where one row is going this way, the next row is going this way, and then the other row is going this way. And they're just singing their song. And then it cuts to all of them at the Grinch's home enjoying their Christmas dinner. He's there with his new woman, and Cindy's there with her family. Everyone's dressed up. The Grinch is cutting the turkey. And the story ends with us leaving the snowflake. Now, let's get into whether or not the Grinch is justified for stealing Christmas.
Hi everyone, so it's a lot later the next day, and I was editing the video, and as I was editing it and I was editing my justification part, I just honestly didn't like it. Also, sorry for not using my mic. You know, I tried something different and had it on my neckline, and I just didn't like the audio discrepancies it was causing, so I just decided for this clip not to use it. But I just wanted to redo the part where I'm justifying whether or not the Grinch was in the right or in the wrong. I wanted it to actually sound more cohesive than it was sounding, so I actually wrote down notes and did it as if I was having to argue this as an essay. And to be honest, my real answer is I feel like the answer isn't yes or no, but I thought it'd be fun to try and just argue if it was just a straight up yes. So that is what I'm going to be doing. Of course, take this with a grain of salt. The whole story takes place on a snowflake, so none of this is to be taken seriously. But again, I just thought it'd be fun to argue as if the Grinch was completely in the right. So that's what I'm going to be doing. First off, one of the reasons that the Grinch is in the right is because he landed in the wrong place. It is described quite a few times throughout the story that the Grinch is not a who, he is a what. And if you're looking at the Grinch as a what and not a who, what's, I believe, honestly think differently. We can see this when we see how he interacts with the Santa plate. You have his two mothers who are who's coming at him and being like, love Santa, and the first thing he does is eat glass or a ceramic plate made out of pottery and say Santa bye-bye. If this isn't the first indication that what's think differently than who's, then I don't know what is. You know, of course it is highlighted that the who's do celebrate different holidays, but Christmas is their holiday. So my theory is that the what's also celebrate all the different holidays, but Christmas is not their main highlighted holiday like it is for the who's. So could you imagine being a what and growing up in a society where you're already preconditioned to not have Christmas as your main holiday, but it's being consistently told to you that you have to love Christmas? That's already going to create a bit of conflict. And also on top of that, the Grinch was bullied in school. He was bullied for being a what? He was bullied for being different. He was bullied for being green, having hair, and I don't think he was necessarily bullied for hating Christmas, but being bullied didn't help him within his hate of Christmas. Like, I think being bullied only magnified his hate of Christmas. And I feel like the bullying or being cornered and called out, isolated, is partly what caused him to inevitably steal Christmas from the Who's. It's clear from the incident in school and the incident at the Whobilation that the Grinch's initial reaction, or his coping mechanism, if we're gonna go there, of course I'm not a psychologist, but if you really look at it, it's like, it seems like how he copes with being interacted with in that way, being made fun of, or being, again, isolated or called out, is to act with anger. In the classroom, he was taunted and bullied and everyone was laughing at him, and he acted out. And then again, when the same exact person taunted him and called him out and everyone was laughing at him, he acted out again in a much bigger way. And that inevitably was one of the reasons that led him to stealing Christmas. Also, another thing that I feel like didn't help, his parents didn't go after him. His mothers did not go after him. He was an 8-year-old boy who was bullied in school, and then he went up a mountain and stayed there, and his parents didn't try to bring him back down. I feel like that only added fuel to the fire. Could you imagine being that young and your parents not going after you? I feel like that only assured to the Grinch, I can't think of the right word right now, but that only assured to him that the choices he was making was right. And then for however many years, because again, it's not specifically said how old the Grinch is, but I'm guessing by how old Martha May Whovier and how old the mayor is, that he possibly is in his 30s. So just add on that he's been alone that long and no one has tried until Cindy to prove his thoughts that he's been accumulating wrong. And the last point I have is that he needed to steal Christmas, not only for his sake, but for Cindy's sake and for the Who's sake. Him stealing Christmas for Cindy's sake, let's start there, allowed her to be able to cope with the complex feelings she was having about Christmas. The Grinch gave her someone to relate to, and at the end of it, because he stole Christmas, she was able to get her answer from her father in the one scene where all the presents are gone and he's like, Christmas is not about presents, it's about family, it is about gathering with the people you love. Because before the Grinch stole Christmas, before that moment, she could not get a straight answer from anybody what Christmas was actually about. Next, for the Grinch's sake, the only reason he was able to come up with the real meaning of Christmas was because he stole Christmas. He kept trying to hurt the Who's by, destroying the Whobilation, by stealing their presents. And it wasn't until he had everything they had and he saw them singing still in Whoville after he thought he has destroyed their holiday that he realized himself, along with Cindy, that Christmas was more than presents. I also think, Cindy inviting him down to the Whobilation and being the person who kept coming after him time and time again added to the Grinch inevitably being able to realize what the true meaning of Christmas was. And if he hadn't stole Christmas, his heart wouldn't have grown those 3 sizes. He wouldn't have, again, come to the understanding of what Christmas was about. And he also wouldn't have grown and learned and incorporated himself back into Who society and got the girl he wanted since he was 8 years old. Lastly, the reason that I think he needed to steal Christmas was for the Who's. And I think the Who's needed this lesson because of how they were celebrating the holiday. Of course, this is a movie, so how they portray the Who's is almost kind of like a take on us as people and how we celebrate holidays and stuff. But I think the Grinch stealing Christmas only brought the Who's closer together more than they would have been if he hadn't stole Christmas. So that's my argument for as to why the Grinch was justified in stealing Christmas. And I forgot to say this in my video, but happy holidays to everyone. I know this video is coming out on actual Christmas, which I thought was fun and fitting. But yeah, now let's get back to my outro.
The story is a good story. If the Grinch didn't steal Christmas, we wouldn't know how the Grinch stole Christmas. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, tell me what you think down in the comments below. If you have a different opinion or you just have certain things to add, again, put it in the comments. I'll be happy to read them. But like if you like this video, subscribe if you want to see more of me. I post every Wednesday. I also have a second channel that I post on every Monday. So if you want to get 2 videos from me every week, I am technically posting 2 videos. It's just one here on my main channel, one on my second channel. We do a lot more relaxed stuff there. The video actually coming out before this video was me doing a podcast episode talking about like Secret Santa and White Elephant and how I would change those games because of stuff I've experienced with those games in the past. But yeah, I hope you have a good weekend, weekday, weeknight, and bye!